Welcome to the Humanity Sells Podcast, where we talk about the marketing revolution that's happening in tech consulting and how the best businesses are elevating their brand, amplifying their message, and selling more by being more human. We're your hosts, Brandon Triola.
And I'm Nate Nettie. Let's get into it.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Humanity Sells. Nate and I are here, and I'm super excited. Today's going to be awesome. We have a great guest. Before I introduce the guest, I'll say this. We're going to be talking about healthcare. And if you are a human being, healthcare should matter to you. Because at one point, you were born. At one point, you will not be born anymore, and you will die. But in between, we all have to go to a doctor. And it doesn't matter how healthy you are or how sick you are. Healthcare touches everybody, and I'm really excited to introduce Brian Sanderson. He's our special guest here. He's really become a friend and a mentor to Nate and myself these past couple years, and Brian has spent his career in the healthcare industry advising CFOs of some of the largest healthcare organizations in the world on all things revenue, including how patient experience actually leads to stronger financial performance. In fact, he wrote a whole book on it. This is the book. It's called The Patient First Revolution: How a New Era of Patient Management Organizations is Taking Care of Business by Taking Care of People. It's a great book. It's not one of those cold, sterile healthcare books. This is a book with a story in it. And so if you're in healthcare at all, if you are involved on the consulting side or the tech side or the practitioner side, I highly recommend this book. It's awesome. It's fun to read. And a little bit more about Brian really quick, and then we'll get into it. But after spending 15 years at Crow, helping them grow their healthcare consulting practice from $2 million to over $100 million, it's like having $2 and taking it to over past 100. He is now running something called DIY Consulting that he started, and he's helping healthcare technology and consulting firms turn great products into great growth using a manufacturing-like process that he calls growth systemization that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. Brian lives in Chicago with his wife and 4 adult children, and when they're not traveling to Ireland, he's hanging with them or playing golf or helping these healthcare business leaders. And according to Nate and myself, Brian is a certified human. He cares about people, and that shows up in everything that he does. Like I said, he wrote a book about it. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My pleasure to be here, especially with you two folks who I enjoy talking with professionally, personally, etc. It's a real thrill for me to be on this.
We're excited. I'm going to pull up a little meme here to get us cooking, a little healthcare meme. Everybody, I mean, healthcare is healthcare, right? Everybody feels some type of way about healthcare. Nate's wife just delivered their second-born child. I mean, Nate, how was your healthcare experience recently?
It was great. We were treated fantastic.
Now tell the truth, because we are recording.
No, it was good. It was really good.
I'll pull this up real quick because I found this meme. I thought it was really funny. Those of you listening, it says, every nurse, doctor, and healthcare worker I know early. I chose this field to help people, and then a year in, and the guys just, people are the worst.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge for these practitioners. I mean, they see people at their best, at their worst, at their most vulnerable, at their most enthusiastic, etc. And you have to be steady through all that. You know, all the emotion that goes with, being in a healthcare setting. You know, I personally have always thought that a hospital is a very blessed place. People are born there, people die there. You know, all the agony and emotion gets experienced within those walls, and now obviously outside of it. But the people that do that work, that interact with you, they're the ones that can turn a very traumatic experience into a very positive experience. And so I'm glad to hear that Nate had a good experience with delivering a second child. It's such a joyful experience to begin with.
Yeah,
Brian,
I mean, my wife did all the work, to be honest with you. I just sat on the couch and held a pillow and prayed for her.
And then once the baby arrived, they slapped you and woke you up. And
He's here.
Right. I wanted to ask you, you've been in this healthcare space a long time, and we have a lot of listeners that are in or touch healthcare. And this is kind of a lead-off question that we ask our guests. What does it mean to be a good human in the world of healthcare right now? What does that mean to you?
Yeah. Just to reiterate some of the stuff I just said, it's such an emotionally volatile experience. In no other industry that I have ever experienced, financial services or retail or whatever, do you get the emotion and humanity that goes with a healthcare interaction, right? So I've always thought that that was the epicenter of what we are about as humans, because you see all sides of it. You see newborns, you see people dying, et cetera. So to me, that's the ultimate human interaction. All that said, the the way that you make people feel during that is, in my opinion, becoming that much more important as there are more options, as there's more information available. There's home care. There's all these things, but people want to feel taken care of. And the degree to which hospitals, healthcare organizations, even healthcare technology can enable people to have that feeling of being taken care of, to me, that's the epicenter of humanity.
I feel like that is what makes you a good consultant, and so successful, because just knowing you, I feel like that comes through who you are. Do you feel like that's something that you consciously bring to the table with your clients, is like making them feel taken care of? Is that part of your ethos? Is that part of your approach?
So at a business level, yes. I mean, that is what they're, to me, that's what they're buying. When you think about consulting, right, you have somebody that's in a position, or people that are in positions that want to achieve something that they could not do on their own. And they're making personal decisions that this person or this firm or this group of people are going to help us achieve this. And if we do achieve this, then we can go on to do great things, and it'll affect me personally, et cetera. What I've had the pleasure of experiencing over the years, over a career of almost 30 years in consulting, is to see some of the younger executives achieve things and get promoted, move on, move up, be in decision-making situations, and have a stack of achievements that have led them to such personal success. And I get a lot of personal satisfaction out of that. And in fact, even when I just came back from a healthcare conference, there were a number of health system CFOs that I ran into that I've known for literally 20 years. And to see them evolve their career, grow their families, go on to achieve great things, that to me was the personal satisfaction of it. But all along there, I think they needed to have somebody take care of them.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
that's amazing. I'm just going to ask a quick follow-up to that. Why, in my experience, that relationship that you have cultivated with your clients and peers is the exception, not the norm? Why do you think the business world is that way? And like, why do you, in your opinion, why do you feel like, your approach in connecting with people, making them feel valued, helping them grow, why do you feel like that is the exception and not the norm in the space that we're in?
Yeah, it's a great question, Nate. I actually think it's a huge differentiator for those, even with my book, having someone in your primary service area for your hospital feel taken care of, or that this hospital will take care of me. To me, that's a differentiator, because in business and healthcare and other things, et cetera, I think we've become a very transactional economy,
Yeah.
industry, et cetera. And even the communications, the interactions, et cetera, are very transactional. And and to me, if you extract the emotion out of it, it's almost like buying something online, Amazon. I don't think you get the experience of the interaction with a human to making you feel good, making you feel taken care of, making you feel appreciated. And so I think the consulting industry, and to a degree the healthcare technology, is becoming a bit more transactional, because people, executives, leaders feel as though there's more productivity in transactional types of environments. Whereas I feel if you can add the humanity element to it, you can add the caring to it, the appreciation, taking care of, et cetera, you are going to differentiate yourself, your organization, and in the end, people appreciate being taken care of.
It's amazing
most likely.
because we have this podcast called Humanity Sells. You should totally be a guest on it because it'd be great. I love that. And I want to talk about this for a second. So you actually wrote a book about this, and so many people want to write a book. So many people also don't have anything to say, but after spending decades in this world, you saw this need. And hey, guys, it's actually focusing on the people, on the patients, is what leads to the revenue growth. Give us an overview of this book and why you wrote this.
Sure, sure. Back to the transactional element here. There's a lot of pressure on the healthcare industry right now, a lot of margin pressure, operational pressure, cost pressure, reimbursement pressure, et cetera. And what I'm seeing is a lot of healthcare institutions try to become a bit more manufacturing-like, right? Very defined processes and expecting a lot of productivity. And then when you talk to nurses and doctors who are expected to increase their productivity, and by that it means spending less time with patients, it is, for the most part, it's opposite of why they got into medicine, why they got into healthcare in the first place. So there's this dichotomy. What's interesting to me anyway, though, is that every patient wants to feel taken care of, right? So if every patient has a desire to feel taken care of, and if you built a business around answering that desire, then I think you would not have to worry about market share. You would not have to worry about reimbursement. You would not have to worry about all these other things because people will flock to an area where they feel taken care of. So I think if we put the only way to do that is not be cheerleaders and stand on a soapbox and say, take care of people, and we really care about patient experience. It's actually to do something practically. And so the book talks about creating an infrastructure called the patient management organization, where you take every key department, operational, finance, clinical, et cetera, and you zero them in on creating the best patient experience to take care of people, whether that be there before they go into the hospital, in the hospital, and after the hospital. If you create that environment where someone feels taken care of, you will have their lifetime what I call lifetime medical value. That is, Brandon's going to come to that place. He's going to take his kids to that place. He's going to get old at that place, but he's always going to go to that place that he feels taken care of. To me, that's an economic value that hospitals are not yet completely understanding, but I think they will. And
Yeah.
so the book itself is about creating that infrastructure.
And that's amazing because it sounds like there's this beautiful intersection between like not just the business acumen, but like humanity and the technology side of it. Can you talk about like maybe one practical way that a well-built PMO shows up? Like a person that maybe has a medical issue. Like how does that show up in their day-to-day life?
Sure. So there's an emphasis these days on these chronic conditions. So there's actually departments that are now focused on chronic conditions. That could be diabetes, it could be congestive heart failure, it could be asthma, it could be any of these things. In any event, the reason that they're starting these specialties is that there are some ongoing clinical needs that would create a better environment for someone to stay healthy if they could just do these things, right? But what's missing, though, is practical infrastructure to enable that to occur. And I'll give you an example in a second. So what has actually happened is people are leaving hospitals after they receive treatment and they're not following up. Or they're seeing a doctor who's ordering some medicine or whatever it is, and leave the economics out of it, and they're not following up. Right? There are people that are not getting the regular checkups for prostate and mammograms, things such as that. So all of those things can be initiated through a patient management organization, right? So if you have some kind of clinical indication that you have that you're at chance of prostate cancer or breast cancer or something like that, wouldn't it be nice to have an organization that proactively reaches out to you to ensure that you get the kind of care, the tests, the mammograms, the prostate exams, and then shares the information, and then gets you enrolled in something that you can proactively become healthy or healthier, et cetera. Right now, the transaction is you go in, you get a test, you get a result, and then it's on you. There's no interaction with the organization. So I think if you just apply it to the chronic care, like asthma or kidney disease or whatever it is, diabetes, et cetera, I think you'll have immediate engagement. That's where to start, chronic care.
Amazing.
I wanna like wrap what you're saying and transport it outside of healthcare for our listeners who aren't in healthcare. I think one of the most important things that you're highlighting here is the general experience of being a human in our modern society is that you are not taken care of. You're at the mercy of profitability for whatever.
The transactional thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So whether you're flying on an airplane, renting a car, trying to mail something, do your taxes, it's all way too hard. And it is not designed from the standpoint of how can I make this person feel taken care of? And so even outside of healthcare, because our whole experience of navigating through the world makes us feel not taken care of. Any company, this is what Brian is saying, just to put a fine point on it, any company that prioritizes making their customers feel taken care of, whether it be it physically, if you're in healthcare, or just emotionally, or in whatever situation you're in with your business, you are going to differentiate, stand out, and grow because that is your perspective. Is that a good way to sum it up, Brian?
That's perfect. And in fact, I think there's a whole ethos around that you would get engagement from the consumers of that. Mm-hmm. Now, I just taking it into other industries. So I've traveled millions of miles in consulting, right? And I'm in all these hotels and airlines and things such as that. Frequent travelers, traveled 1 million miles on United, and then these.
First of all, that's amazing. I just got to say,
that's a lot of miles. Yeah, that's a lot of time away. All that said, the frequent traveler kinds of things that are out there that people engage with, they do it, quote, for the perks, right? So they do it for points that they use and whatever it is. But there's very little in the way of making someone feel taken care of. Now, there's a couple that I'll reference here, and one that I'll give you an example of. So there's a really high level of United that has its own special place in an airport, et cetera. It's very hard to reach. But when you're in there, they take care of you. Right? They check on your flight. They give you communications and things such as that. Wouldn't it be nice to extend that to people who are not, traveling an enormous amount of time? I think you would draw people there. The one place so all of these things that I do, Avis. So I'm an Avis chairman. So it's the highest level of Avis, right? Highest level of Avis. And it's the most taken care of that of all of these things, Hilton, of Marriott, of United, of Southwest, of all these things, whenever I have an interaction, I feel as though someone's taking care of me. And it's so bizarre that there's so many other opportunities that you could, in all these other things that we talk about, that you could make someone feel taken care of just by asking questions, by the way. But of all these things, only Avis does that. I think healthcare is starting to move in that direction because it's becoming hyper competitive by introducing technology and things such as that. So you have to do something different. I just think they're not doing it fast enough.
Tell us a story about something that's happened with Avis or renting a car that you're like, I just felt so taken care of when they did this.
Sure. So I rented a car. I'll just pick a city. I think I rented a car in like Peoria, and then I think it was Des Moines. I rented a car in Des Moines and I drove it to Peoria, right? And I turned in at the airport in Peoria, and then I got a bill for, this is like a 2-day rental. I got a bill for over $1,000. Like, what is this? And so I called up the Avis chairman's desk and I said, I got this bill. They said, well, that's because Des Moines owns the car. So they had to hire somebody to go down there to get the car and drive it back. And which I said, okay, I wasn't aware of this. And they said, we'll take care of it. And then I never heard anything back from them other than a credit on my credit card for back to what it normally was, right? So it wasn't me haggling with the Des Moines airport. It wasn't me haggling with some customer service thing. It wasn't me calling American Express. It wasn't me. We'll take care of it. Right?
And it was taken care of. Like the bill reflected the change.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds like they are the Chick-fil-A of rental car service. But well, it's true, you hear these stories. Yeah.
Yeah. At least for chairman. I don't know how it goes with the rest of whatever, but for all these things that I have all these miles on, And I don't always rent cars. In fact, it's probably less than 50% of the time that I travel do I rent a car, usually Uber or taxi, whatever. But I do it more because I know that they're going to have this nice car waiting for me, and they drive me to the. When I go to the offsite and return the car, they drive me to the airport and drop me off at the airport. They just make it easier for me. So anyway, that's it.
I would like to talk and get into the tech side of things now because it's connected, right? So these things that you're talking about, patient management organization, a lot of these things, these creating situations to better take care of people, these things are enabled by technology, which you've been, helping do implementation and consulting around. What should technology companies that work in healthcare take from this whole idea of the patient management organization and putting people first? If they were smart, if technology consulting companies in healthcare were smart, they would what?
Yeah, great question. They would what goes through the health systems executive offices. Right. So there's two parts to this level of engagement of technology to healthcare. If there is leadership within the health system that is not quite focused on patient management, patient experience, and things such as that, it's hard for me to say to a healthcare technology company, well, you really need to double down on patient experience because it rings hollow within the executive ranks, right? So there's two things that they should focus on. One is, what are the goals of a health systems organization? Are they to be more efficient? Are they to be more technology advanced? Is it to decrease labor costs? Is it to increase margin? Is it to integrate all their facilities? There's a bunch of things there that they need to address from an operational perspective. But for this patient management organization, for the patients feel taken care of, at some point, each of these technologies enables an efficiency or an engagement with patients in some regard. Now, they get faster information, they get better communication, they get whatever it is. There's better integration. There's more information that's at the doctor's fingertips that they can interact with the patient more without asking the same questions over and over. There's a bunch of different things. I really think that the idea of increasing market share by making patients feel taken care of, and this is our role in enabling you to do that, I think you have an audience. Now, is it the number one priority for every health system? No, but is it becoming that much more important every day? Absolutely, yes.
So don't make it about your tech, make it about the patients that will feel the care and experience on the other side of what the technology does.
Yeah, right. So there's features and benefits, right? Our tech does this, and this, right? That's great. It's good to know what it does. But this will enable Nate to leave the hospital with the information that he knows that he needs in order to take care of his newborn. This will enable during the delivery process your physicians to see what the key parameters are to ensure that nothing faulty happens. This will enable your billing system to get something out accurate so that Nate doesn't get an inaccurate bill and he has to waste time away from his family trying to argue that they didn't get these services, that she wasn't there for a broken leg or something like that. So I would focus it on what the patient, the value to the patient versus just the features.
Amazing.
That's amazing. And it dovetails into a question that I had for you right around this. So, you've been consulting these companies for a really long time and simultaneously growing a tech consulting firm, kind of straddling these worlds. And in the last 20, 30 years, obviously growth and how to grow for these companies has changed quite a bit, along with just the landscape of the business world. If a new way that you're putting out there of how to grow is to make people feel taken care of, to not make it about your benefits and features, but to make it about the end result, what are some other ways that you would advise companies on how to grow in this new era?
Sure. There's a lot in there.
You probably need a whole nother episode to really.
Yeah, but I'll tell you a story because it took me full circle about 2 weeks ago. So in my career, I was I had the fortune of being with a brand name organization, Northwestern Memorial Hospital. I was with two excellent large accounting and consulting firms, Arthur Andersen until it went under, and Ernst & Young. So name recognition and brand recognition was never an issue for me. That said, I wanted to build something, so I went over to this place called Crowe, C-R-O-W-E. It was Crowe Horwath at the time. Now it's just Crowe. And literally my first day on the job was walking around the halls of this conference, this exhibit hall of the largest healthcare financial conference in the country. It's called HFMA, Annual National Institute, HFMA ANI. And I was walking around there with my name tag that said Crowe, and so many people that I knew looked at my name tag and said, "What's a Crowe? What is that? Like, what is it that you guys really do?" So literally with no brand recognition, zip, nothing.
Wow.
And then I was at this conference just this past week, 2 weeks ago, and I was walking around the exhibit hall, and I was interacting with a bunch of these exhibit booths and things such as that. And the lack of clarity that they have in their message, just in easy questions like, "What is it you guys do?" What was amazing to me, and it would take 3 or 4 questions, or what differentiates you? And it was amazing. There's hundreds of these exhibitors, and I probably talked to, I'm not kidding you, 75 of them, and maybe 2 or 3 of them had clarity of message. And I left there thinking, okay, I understand what is that they do and what makes them different. So when we start talking about growth and making organizations feel taken care of, it first starts with what is it that you do, clarity of your message, and what makes you different. So the CFO of Duke Health System, when I went to him early in my start at Crowe, I sat across the desk from him, and he said, "Tell me what you're best at, and don't tell me you're good at everything, because I know you're not. Tell me what you're best at. I'll hire you for that." And he did. And from there, we did a lot of work for Duke. And it was wonderful. So getting
Amazing.
better at that message, as you guys know, as marketers, clarity of message, brand, reputation, those kinds of things, you have to start there. I don't know if you guys experience that, and that there's a lack of clarity in messaging with some of the folks you interact with.
Well, so
Yeah.
much that we started a podcast about it to try to help people. But I just honestly didn't know that's what you were going to say. Guys, we didn't pay Brian to say that. But it's fascinating that even in the world of healthcare consulting and healthcare technology, that someone who's tenured, very tenured in this area, that's a gaping wound that you see. I mean, it's kind of astonishing.
I'll tell you why I think it's a gaping wound. And just to summarize exactly what we're talking about, people not being able to say very quickly what you do and what makes you different, especially in young organizations. I think that there is this distraction called the art of the possible in the market. And you have all of this opportunity in the market when you have a good idea. And there's this pressure, right? You have investors, you need to make a return, you need to grow, right? So naturally you think, well, if I narrow down my focus and I can quickly articulate what I do and what makes me different, I might alienate a large part of my opportunity and disconnect it. And that's fearful for me. So I'm just going to play it safe, quote unquote. And every interaction is going to be different. I'm going to nuance the conversation in the market. But what you end up doing is presenting as a nothing burger to the whole market. There's nothing here. Yeah. You're sounding like everybody else. You think you're saying things that I want to hear, but what I want to hear is like the CFO of Duke Health. Tell me what you're really good at and what you do, and I'll hire you for that. And I think if people could just get on board with the idea of focusing on an audience, on a market, and being very clear about what you do and what makes you different, man, they'll be off to an amazing head start, as proven by your conference that you were at.
100% agree. 100%. So our we quickly came up with our, let's just call it a tagline, whatever it is, but we're the single source of truth for net revenue. And that was it.
Say that one more time.
So so we're the single source of truth for net revenue. So
that's healthcare.
Yeah. So what I'm talking to these places, and I And I asked them to tell me in 7 words or less. So, and I've consulted with these organizations that want to grow, and I asked them to give me 7 words or less, and literally 90% of them can't do it. They can't put together 7 words. The issue is that I think, Nate, what you're saying, which is correct, as the audience, the person that they're talking to, that person actually wants to be able to compartmentalize what it is you do, because there's so much distraction, right? Okay, this person's good at this, that person's good at that. When I encounter this, I can call this person, and they want that kind of Rolodex. But if it's vague, they don't know. The mind doesn't. The mind wants clarity. So the degree that these places can be clear. There's obviously other things like reputation, et cetera. There are tactical elements of it. But if you're not clear in what you do, that's a tough place to start. Tough way to grow.
There's 2 things that I want to get, speaking of growth, there's 2 things I want to get to here before we wrap up that I think are going to be really valuable for our audience. The first thing that I would love to talk about is DIY consulting. So you've been in this world a long time. You've seen all sorts of problems and issues. Most of these healthcare organizations, when they have these problems, well, I guess I better call Deloitte and call a big consulting firm to come in. Talk about why you started DIY consulting and what is the whole ethos of the mission that you're behind there. And then after that, I want to get into the system that you've developed to help the tech companies actually grow and do it on autopilot or do it in a system. So first, DIY consulting, what's the why behind that and why you wanted to start that?
You bet. Thank you for asking. So there's 2 parts of DIY consulting. The first is for health systems and to execute on projects, which I'll talk about in a second. The second part is growth, which is helping professional service firms and healthcare technologies firms grow in the way that we grow using the exact same method which will work. 100% of the time that will work. But relative to this DIY consulting, what I noticed in the course of my career was you either do consulting with somebody or to somebody. And I've noticed that there's a lot of less experienced middle managers within health systems that have the opportunity to engage with an important project you remove that opportunity from them when you send it out to Deloitte. Now, Deloitte, I have a lot of respect for. I think they do fantastic work, but I think they're more on the highly complex end of consulting, whereas there's a group of projects, initiatives, et cetera, that are also very important, but they may not need the heaviest lift from a consulting firm, that you could just use a lot of the people that are resident within your health system to execute on it. There are 7 personas that exist with every project. What I've noticed is every health system has at least 4 of them in-house. Now you need somebody to supplement them. You need a leader of it. You need somebody to take ownership of that engagement, et cetera. And that's where DIY comes in. We can help you execute on your projects and deliver the promise rather than bringing in Deloitte. Don't hire Deloitte to do something that you could do yourself, is my ethos of that part of it. And thus far, what I'm hearing is a lot of CFOs understanding that, but they don't necessarily have the complete trust that it will be executed in the way that somebody else they could bring in and potentially blame if it doesn't go well. But they're starting to warm to the idea that we need to develop the next generation of leaders, and we need to give them an opportunity to execute on something that's important to our organization.
And if their revenue is struggling, then they probably don't have the money to spend on a big 4 firm to come in and give you 7 full-time roles worth of advice that you could do with 4 of those people that you already have on your own team. Is that right?
That's exactly it, Brandon. I can't tell you the number of times that I've talked to health systems who are frustrated with a very sharp 23-year-old consultant coming in and asking the difference between Medicare and Medicaid, right? And having to pay an exorbitant hourly rate for somebody who doesn't understand. They're very good at analysis, very good, whatever. But there's somebody in your health system that understands that distinction, but doesn't necessarily have the project management rigor or the wherewithal, whatever, that a leader could help guide them to that answer. So to pay $250, $350, $450, $550 an hour for someone who is asking the difference between Medicare and Medicaid to me, that's a waste of money.
So DIY consulting is where you come in to these health systems and you help them overcome these challenges, both themselves, you give them the tools, but you're also actually helping them with the gaps that they don't have. Is that right?
Yes, yes. We
Amazing.
help organizations execute on projects with their people successfully.
Love that. Now, there's another side of this DIY consulting. There's the growth systemization side of it. So all of these professional services firms, technology companies, I think people look at healthcare right now and rightfully so, because it's never going to go away unless people stop getting sick. There's always going to be a need. But they look at healthcare and they say, there's a gold mine here. We're going to build tech around this. We're going to create these offerings around this. And then they get into, and then they realize this is not as easy as we thought to kind of grow a business around here. But for 15 years, you developed a system for growing. I would love for you to talk about, would you be willing to share what that system is with our audience today so that they have something to walk away with? Like, this is the system that I know that you're saying, I know this works 100%. This system will work.
Yes. Yeah. It's a complex system. I'll take you through the major tenets of it. But even in my role, when we grew from 2 million to 100 million, in my role, I interacted with a lot of health systems. We had over 1,000 hospitals that we interacted with, and we started with just a handful. I think it was over 2,000 last year, and so I was solicited by a lot of healthcare technology organizations branded who had a really great product. It solved a particular pharmacy issue or product, whatever it was. It was a great product, but with no understanding as to how to take that into a health system environment and get their attention and get some traction, et cetera. So they would contact me and say, "Hey, can you introduce us to your clients?" Right, which is not an efficient way to do things. So what they lacked is a system of growth. The system has three parts. There's a marketing part, there's a sales part, there's an implementation part. All of it is growth. So we're not talking about the actual implementation of your widget in a thing, but the implementation, if done correctly, gives you the opportunity to grow. So, and very simply, I believe that marketing's role is to generate qualified leads. Sales role is to take qualified leads, nurture them to closure. Implementation's role is to take closed sales, deliver with excellence, and create radiation or same-store sales opportunities. That's how you grow. So you guys are the experts at creating qualified leads. What I've noticed in many organizations is that marketing is completely separate from sales, is completely separate from delivery, right? And never
They all live on their own islands. Yeah.
Yes, and so many times, oh, that's marketing's job, or that's sales responsibility, or that's we don't get involved in delivery. When actually, it's the integration of all of them that creates the maximum amount of growth. There's 10 tracks, 10 growth tracks that need to be performed with rigor and excellence, et cetera. Excuse me. So it is a system. And then on top of that, there are personas. So yeah, I went through the big four environment where rainmakers are the ones that made partners, right? So you bring in all this stuff. But there aren't that many rainmakers in the world. There just aren't. It's not to say that all these other folks aren't valuable. They're extremely valuable. There's no way I could have achieved without some of these folks who weren't rainmakers, but were doing excellent work. So there's, in our world, there are 7 personas. And I'll give them to you very quickly here to give you a sense as to what it's like. There's an account executive that's responsible for radiation. There's the rainmaker that's the face to the market. There's the client advocate that delivers really well and makes the client feel taken care of. There's a sales leader that nurtures qualified leads. There's a marketer who develops those qualified leads. There's a specialist who is really good at the technology that people really want to interact with to understand the technology. And there's an orchestrator that sits on top of this to make sure it's all working. In every one of those tracks that I referenced, at least 2 of those personas are working together. And that's the point, Brandon, you said on an island.
Yeah.
In an island, they're not working together. In growth systemization, they're required to work together because that's how you get the maximum growth.
And what percentage of the healthcare technology or professional service firms, businesses that you've worked with or are working with, do you see them siloed and not working together?
I'm going to randomly say 75%. I know that it's greater than 50%. I know it is because they may use the words that we're working with marketing, but when I ask about the process, generally what occurs is there's some form of marketing, good, bad, or indifferent, and they drop these leads at the door of sales, right? And so this happens more often than not. Sales grabs these leads and says, "These are horrible. Maybe there's two or three in here," and so they maybe follow up on some. They do their own filtering, etc. And then no feedback, right? And then once the sale is done, delivery takes over, and then there's no real connection to them. They don't make the client famous. They don't, whatever it is. So greater than 50% of the time, I would say it's closer to 75% of the time. And even in that 25% of the time, I don't think they're operating optimally, because each one of those tracks gives you the opportunity to be differentiated from your competitors just by doing that track, even the track around proposals, right? And I'll give you an example. So every proposal that I've ever done, now I put three options in it. I don't say the price is $75,000. I give them three options to foster discussion. And so often they say to me, well, it's great that you give me these three, because now I didn't realize I could have had this thing. Or at the worst case, they come back to me and they say, "Hey, I don't want three, I just want the one." Okay, well, which one do you prefer then? It's another conversation that doesn't just end up with a yes or a no. So you can differentiate within the growth systemization, and you can differentiate within your personas by giving everyone a role in growth.
I just had a quick follow-up. I love this. I wish we had another hour because there's a ton to unpack in there. But one of the things that strikes me as interesting is getting to the reasons why these three core functions, marketing, sales, and delivery, are on their own island to begin with. And this is the Humanity Sells podcast. So we're always pulling back the layers of whatever BS is floating on the surface and what's the real reason this is going on. It seems to me that I love your confirmation or expansion on this idea. It seems to me that each function has potentially one or several of these internal pains that keep them isolated. Marketing's being, I don't want to seem incompetent, like I'm not contributing to the company, so I'm going to go for lead volume, because if I can show this big number, independent of quality, I will be seen as worthy to this organization and a good investment. Sales, their livelihood is on the line because it's their commission. So they're going for lead quality, which creates tension between marketing and sales, and they're misaligned. And then delivery is like, I don't care where these came from. I'm just trying to make this customer feel good. And if I can do that, then I'll feel like a worthy contributor to this company, not realizing that they do themselves a favor by creating the feedback loop back into marketing and sales. What do you think about the human side of what causes these rifts?
Wow, that's extremely well said, by the way, and extremely accurate in my experience.
Nate, you should have your own podcast.
Yeah, I think you hit it there. So a couple of things that I've noticed. And unfortunately, I think our workforce is the way it's evolving is not helping this. What we've noticed in hiring is that people are starting to identify most with their functional expertise versus their company. It used to be, I work for Sears, right? And then I work for this part of this company or whatever. Now they're saying, "Oh, I'm a marketing social whatever it is." So give me any functional title, and that's their quote identity. They don't. A lot of them don't even tell you who they work for, right? So
Wow.
when you take that out of it, then it's harder for them to work together because they don't have the connectivity with the practice or or whatever. So I think our workforce is hurting this. But what I've noticed most is that there are these indicators of success that every department has or every person has, et cetera. And this is a real example. So this is a real organization I'm about to say. The head of marketing, that person's office had awards posted all around the office of various marketing recognitions, marketing association certificates, and things such as that. So aren't we a fantastic marketing function here at this organization? Now, the leads were for crap, right? But all kinds of marketing recognition. The sales organization here just wanted to focus on the easiest sales. Like, give me the stuff that's going to turn over, that's going to make me the easiest to sell. I don't really care where the future of the organization is. I just want to be able to sell more. So give me something that that's hot, and I'll sell that, and I'll make more money that way. And the delivery side of this, they just wanted to get it done and get out of there, right? There's a backlog of stuff. Let's just get it in, get out of there, move on to the next one. And there's turnover in all three of those things because none of them feel as though they're attached to an organization with purpose, right? And to some degree, maybe not as explicit as what I just described, to some degree, every organization has something like that. What Nate said, we delivered 14,000 leads, right? Well,
we did our job.
Yeah, we sold $1 million. I hit my quota, or we implemented 3 software packages. But nothing in there is that, we grew the organization 42% last year because that's sales job. Or no, that's marketing job. No, that's if we could just deliver more, if we could just implement more, we would grow faster. That's really delivery's job. But it's not, it's everybody's.
Seems like that's a core principle for growth systemization, is getting everybody focused on the bigger goals, looking beyond their own function, looking to the larger organization and their contribution. Is that accurate?
Yes, and so let's flip that just a little bit because here's some secret sauce. There's another part of growth systemization that involves atomic habits, which are very important to do things consistently and well that contribute to growth. But those 7 personas that I referenced, here was the fear, at least in professional services. Right? Okay, if you're not a rainmaker, you're not going to make partner in this firm. You're not going to make the highest level, whatever. So we threw that out. So every one of the personas that I referenced, every one of them has a partner in it. So if you're a specialist, you can get to the highest level in our organization. If you're a marketer, you can get to the highest level in our organization. So what it does, it creates opportunity for them to achieve in an area that they do really well. So the secret to management in a growth organization is find out what someone does well and ask them to do that. And don't ask them to do something they don't do well. If you can get everybody pointed that way, then you're going to grow.
This, like Nate said, I feel like we'll have to do another episode at some point. Brian, this is amazing. For all of the healthcare technology professional services firms that are listening going, growth systemization sounds like something I need. Where can I learn more? Where should they go to connect with you?
Yeah, so I'd like to have the conversation. I mean, back to the transactional element of this, I'd like to have a conversation about growth because just getting information or filling out a form or getting, I've put growth systemization onto this big blow up chart, et cetera. It's overwhelming. Whereas you can get to, I think you can get a lot deeper in a short conversation. And that short conversation can be coordinated by just going out to my website. It's either DIY consulting.me or briansanderson.me. There's an opportunity for you to schedule an appointment with me. 15 minutes, we can figure out where the focus should be for growth. That's how quickly it can happen.
Awesome. This has been amazing. I'm going to put some links in the show notes. Like I said, we're going to link to Brian's book in the show notes for those of you listening or watching. You'll be able to go and see where you can get that on Amazon. We're going to put links to his websites that he talked about here. And I may even see if Brian will let us put a link to his growth systemization placemat that he has created that we have seen, where people can just get a download of all of those personas and all of the steps of growth systemization to get the conversation started. I'll see if Brian gives us permission for that. We'll see. We'll have to ask him offline, but check the notes, and in the description, there's going to be links in there for you. And Brian, what's the one thing that you would love people to go away with today? The number one thing for people in the healthcare space.
Sure, and I'm gonna give you two things. It's one
Great.
thing for each side of my organization. One is develop the future leaders that are going to take our health system businesses into the future by giving them the opportunity to do important work. And the second thing is, as soon as you put a system of growth in place, you will remove the reliance on purely talented people that are fewer and fewer. And the system works better than just a few talented people that may come in and out of your organization.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Humanity Sells. Make sure you tell your friends in healthcare, in technology, in healthcare consulting about this episode. This is one they're going to want to listen to. Brian, thanks for being on.
My pleasure. Thanks, gentlemen.